All right, so this is just a little overview on Magma blocks based on your request for dimensions. I measured a couple of different Magma engineering and also some converted blocks, but I'll stick with just the Magma blocks since that's probably going to be the easiest one to reference from. So I just pulled apart a mold here, just a little 105 grain double-ended wad cutter, nice little mold for plinking. But this seems to line up pretty well with the average for Magma engineering made molds. There are going to be some differences in one side to the other. Both sides are going to be equal in features, except for the one side where the sprue plate bolt goes through. There's obviously going to be cross drilled down through the top for the sprue plate, and then you're also going to have that recess there for the sprue plate spring, which goes through. You have the bolt goes through the sprue plate, then goes through the mold block. You have the spring, and then you have the retaining nut as such. In terms of dimensions, I'll use one side just for reference, but I'll start with the blocks. Exterior dimensions, I will do this in inches as well as metric. Not sure where you are. So since this is a big wide world we live in and everybody uses metric except for us in the US, wish we did, but either way, that's another matter. 1.8, 1.798, 45.6. Height of the block, 38.14, 1.5 inches. The thickness of the block, 0.66, 16.78 millimeters. And then this is I'm going to use the sprue plate side of the blocks. So there are going to be 3 for this side specifically, but this largest one is going to be the one that sets them apart. It's the 0.440 minus pin that just goes in there. 445 does not, but 444 does. The depth of that recess, sorry, I don't have a depth micrometer here, 0.130, 131, 132, so give or take. So there's that measurement. The slot, these are going to be the equal on both sides. The holes are centered in the slot, and they are also centered on center of the block. But in terms of, got something down inside the block there. This is going to be a 0.318 pin. This just goes in. 319 is too tight, but you need to keep this clean if you're going to be changing out hardware. But 0.318 minus pin. And then the mold key screw holes, which are threaded. I can't recall the threads offhand. Somebody might be able to help me out with that one. Leave it in a comment below, since this will be on YouTube. But a 0.137 minus pin goes through the threads. 138 does not fit, but a 137 minus pin goes through. So that's going to be the same for these 2 sides, except for that on the base there. Going to the mold keys, these are going to be identical. That way you can interchange them side to side, doesn't make a difference. But this slot here is for that bolt to go through. As you can see, if that slot was not there, it would not be able to go through. So it's just easier to, if you're going to be making these, just make them both the same. This slot does not have to have a radiused end. It can be square. I have mold keys that have both. So, oh, the depth on this slot here in the mold block does look to be slightly deeper than it is wide. So add a couple thousandths to the depth versus the width. So 318 width, call it 320, 321 on the depth. It's not a super critical thing. You just need the blocks to be able to lock together. That's the main thing. Going back to the mold keys. 1.75, 44.49. One inch. So you got roughly 7 thousandths of play between the key and the slot for it. There are going to be I'm going to use 4. Originally I had 3, but I did notice that one side was going to be different than the other. These are just drilled holes. They're not reamed, and they're not honed to a particular size. These are not a super critical diameter. They just need to be large enough for the screws to go through. But you're going to need these mold keys from this mold go from anywhere from 180, which will just start, to 179. These are minus pins that will go in. It just needs to be able to have the screw go through with a little bit of play, so they can so the screws will center and not be going in cockeyed. That's all that really matters. This hole here for the roll pin, 201 minus pin. And then this slot here, 298 was on the other one. Might be a little rolled over on the edge. I call it 297, 298, give or take, minus pin. So I originally made these measurements off of this other side, but when I pulled this off, there's a slight difference. So 297, 298. Again, this is not a super critical tolerance. It doesn't have to be perfectly sized. It just needs to be able to accommodate enough clearance for the sprue plate bolt to be able to pass through and to center the mold key screws. So as you can see, there is play in that when the bolt is through. So even when the screws are in, as you can see, there is some side-to-side play. You need to have that there, so that way everything is able to align properly. So as you can see, so make sure these holes for the screws to pass through are oversized. So I think that's it. Got the dimensions on the keys and on the blocks. If you have any questions, leave them in a comment on the post that you're originally seeing this on. This is going to be on Cast Bullets, or you can leave a comment below on YouTube, but just leave it on Cast Bullets. That way other people can chime in. Best of luck. Have a good day.